Hi everyone, this is Stjepan and welcome to Hanging Pawns. Round 4 of the Aeroflot Open just finished and I want to show you another game by Vladimir Fedoseev. He had the white pieces against a strong 20-year-old Russian Grandmaster David Paravyan this game, and before this game he had 2 points out of the first 3 rounds, and I have analyzed his round 2 game against the Armenian GM Arman Mikelian as well, and I'll leave a link to it in the description below if you'd like to see that one too. In this game, Fedoseev opened with 1 e4, Paravyan plays e6, the French defense, we have d4, d5, and d5 by Fedoseev, the advanced variation of the French. c5 here by Paravyan, a move which is played 90% of the time in this position, c3 defending the pawn, knight to c6, knight to f3, and queen b6. And this is all very common theory, this position has been played in hundreds of GM games before. a3, this move by Fedoseev is not that common and it's not that good either. The most often played moves would be either queen to b3, knight to a3 or a4, and a3 is slow and gives black more freedom on the queen side. In this position Paravyan already stands a tiny bit better if he reacts properly with, for example, c takes d4, resolving the tension in the center, or just simply developing with knight g to e7 or bishop to d7. Instead he plays a much weaker move which resolves the central tension in a bad way for him and justifies Fedoseev's mistakes. He plays c4, closing down the center. We have knight b to d7 by Fedoseev, and knight to a5, eyeing the weak b3 square, which could be a perfect outpost square for the knight. g3 by Fedoseev, probably another inaccuracy, because he should have just developed the bishop to e2 without losing a tempo. It's better on the d1 h5 diagonal, I think, anyway, and on g2 it's blocked down by the both pawn chains of both players, both black and white, and it will have to wait for at least 10 to 15 moves to open up. Now we have bishop to d7, bishop to g2, knight to e7, developing the king side, and castles. And believe it or not, black has almost a whole pawn advantage in this position, even though his bishop is locked out on d7 and he hasn't castled yet. He has an easier task of improving and creating threats than Fedoseev at the moment. The French defense is an opening in which it's important to create pawn breaks, and usually the side that manages that first gains the initiative. And in this position, black already has the option of pushing f6, and he can prepare moves such as b5, b4 eventually, and so on and so on. And he is much faster to break at the moment. Instead, Paravyan plays knight to f5, infiltrating into Fedoseev's position, or as Ben Feingold would say, knight to f5. We have rook to b1 by Fedoseev, preparing the b4 break. And here David Paravyan boldly castles long, which seems awfully scary after your opponent had just played rook to b1, preparing to break open the queen side. We have rook to e1 by Fedoseev, bishop to e7, developing, queen to c2, putting more defense to the b2 pawn, king to b8, retreating the king, knight to f1, and this is a brilliant positional idea by Fedoseev. He's transferring the knight to e3 and preparing to force away or trade a strong knight on f5. Queen to b3 by Paravyan, a weak move which loses all advantage black had accumulated earlier, and why he's trying to trade queens is a mystery to me. It's not as if Fedoseev is going to be an idiot and take and give the black knight an outpost on b3 for the rest of the game, and black isn't really threatened with anything, so the white's queen isn't that active that black should force a trade of it. Here he just retreats it to e2, queen to e2, and we have bishop to a4, making a battery on the diagonal and probably attempting to trade queens again. Bishop to g5, trying to trade the dark squared bishops, rook h to e8, defending the bishop twice, and here knight to e3, the reason why knight to f1 was played, and black has to take. There isn't much else he can do. He wouldn't want to double his pawns on the h file or on the f file. He takes on e3, and f takes e3. Of course, Fedoseev takes with the pawn and not with the queen. And this is a very instructional point in the game, because in order to win in chess, especially when both players are good or grandmasters, you have to create imbalances, and openings like the advanced French or most variations of the French often lack enough imbalances or are too closed for either side to advance. Here Fedoseev has created a possible pawn break by taking with the pawn, and he is now able to push e4 at his own leisure and thus crush black's central structure, or at least weaken it significantly. Here we have queen to c2 by Paravyan, queen to f1, still declining the queen trade, and queen to f5. Here we have bishop takes c7, rook takes c7, knight h4 threatening the queen, and now Paravyan declines the trade with queen to d3. We have rook to e2 and g5. Paravyan finally starts playing aggressively. Knight retreats to f3, knight to b3, finally getting into that outpost, but it doesn't matter that much now because there isn't too many targets for the knight. Rook b to e1, Fedoseev strengthens the e4 advance. Queen to g6 and e4 at the moment when it's perfectly prepared and all of white's pieces stand well for the break to be successful. Of course, black has to take, d takes e4, and knight d2, a brilliant move not many players would see. Instead of immediately recapturing with the rook, he prepares to capture with the bishop and challenges the b3 knight at the same time. And if black pushes e3, he can simply take the knight on b3 and then the pawn on e3. And in the resulting position, the g2 bishop will not be blocked by its own pieces. Here we have knight takes d2, rook takes d2 and bishop to c6. Paravyan is pretending that he can hold on to the pawn, but Fedoseev simply grabs the pawn on c4 and f5. And Fedoseev doesn't allow f5 to defend e4, he takes en passant with e takes f6, queen takes f6, rook f2, gaining a tempo on the queen, queen to g7 and bishop takes e4. And this is now a position, a clear pawn up. And after bishop takes e4, Fedoseev is completely winning actually. It all started with his brilliant knight maneuver to f1 and to e3, and forcing black to take the knight on e3 and recapturing with the f-pawn. He created a pawn break and opened up the position and the moment in which his pieces stood much better than black's, and they were all ready to support e4 and become active after the break happens. We have bishop to d5 by Paravyan, queen to e2, retreating the queen. And from this position on, there was no brilliant tactical sequence that finished the game. It was just a complete positional superiority which made Paravyan give up soon. A few more moves were played. Rook to d8, rook e to f1, a6, rook f6, g4, queen to e3, king to a7. I mean, it doesn't really matter. White is a pawn up and so much better with a clear target on e6 that there isn't much black can play for. Bishop to g2, h5, queen to e5, rook to d8, and here Paravyan lets go of another pawn, queen just simply takes on h5. Paravyan takes on g2 and resigns with his move. And I think this game should be in the books on the advanced variation of the French. It started with a typical closed position, and one side, in this case Fedoseev, managed to organize a timely break which created initiative and eventually material superiority which made Paravyan resign. With this win, Fedoseev has gone up 3 wins out of 4 rounds at the Aeroflot Open, and I think he will do very well in the rest of the tournament. Alright everyone, I hope you got something from this instructional French. Thanks very much for watching and see you soon for some more chess analysis. Cheers, bye!